few more things. This kind of combines what the previous video, which was crosstabs, with this current video, which is on numerical dependent variables. So recall that the mean of a 0-1 variable is the percentage of ones. So what that means is that we can compute the mean of a 0-1 variable to understand the percent of ones. So let's take a look at another example. Let's go back to the defaulting customer assignment. You can see the SPSS code in my video solution to the multivariate exercise. So you'll see all these things done over there. So let's find the mean of default based on payment type. So here are these means. We've already discussed this a little bit in the crosstab lecture. Those who pay with book have a mean of default of 24, which means 24% of those who use the book method default. 16% using the statement method default. The percentages are much lower with either of the EFT methods. Now, just to convince you, I've also run a crosstab using the exact same data. Here are the column percents. And so you'll note that that 24.3% is exactly the same as the mean. Okay, well, we can use this to study other variables that are numeric if we bin them first. So let's take a look at the down payment variable. So the down payment variable is the amount that you put down. I decided to find the quartiles. So here are the quartiles. And then I used the quartiles to define bins. So there are 4 bins. If you're in the bottom quartile, meaning that you put between $0 and $45 down, then call yourself a 1. If you're 45 to 100, so that's the second quartile, that's the second bin, and so forth. The SPSS equivalent is illustrated in that video, and this is going to be with rank cases, so see that part of the video. All right, now let's find the mean of default. So based on your quartile for down payment. So I've actually done that down here. So here's the mean of default for each of the 4 levels. And so what you'll see is that if you put very little down, so these are people who put between minus $1 and $45 down, there's about a 25% chance that they go away. If you go into the second quartile, well, it's only 13%. Third quartile, it drops down to about 5%. If you're in the top quartile in terms of your down payment amount, so this is your down payment amount, then the chance that you go away is only about 1 or 2%, 1%. So the story is, the more you put down, the less likely you are to walk away. All right. Now, we can do what we were doing earlier with the employee data set, where we looked for interactions. So interactions involve 2 independent variables. Here I'm looking at payment type and the statement method. And so this is a picture of the interaction plot. Here are the means of default broken out by both those variables. The story here is that if you're using the statement method or book method, and you put very little down, you're very likely to go away. It doesn't matter how much you put down if you're using either of the EFT methods. So those methods are both safe in a sense that they're pretty sticky. It's hard to get out of them. Okay. However, if you're in one of these bad methods, the book or the statement method, and you put a lot of money down, you're not so likely to go away. So this is what's called an interaction, because the 2 variables together determine your default rate. Here are some additional ways of telling this story using other software. So here's a bar chart showing the percent who default for each of the payment methods. So that's just showing this analysis right here. This happens to be created in SAS. The graphs in SPSS look very similar, and again, see that video. If we erase the bars, just leave the lines, we get the line plot, and this is exactly what this interaction plot showed. This one happens to be done in SAS. SPSS calls it a line plot, and that's why I put that in the heading. All right, we could also do a clustered bar chart to show that same data. I find the line chart to be a lot clearer than the clustered bar chart, but you'd want to keep your audience in mind. So what you'll see is that if you have checking EFT, notice the percents are all low. That corresponds to this line. Likewise with credit EFT, the default rates are all pretty low. However, if you have statement, low down payments have a high default rate. High down payments have a low default rate. Likewise with book. Now another way of encoding this second variable is to use multiple panels. So this is something that's available in any decent software package. So SPSS offers it, R offers it, SAS offers it, Minitab, all of the good ones do. So the idea is to break out the graph, have a separate panel for each level of one of your variables. So here we have a credit EFT plot, the default rate, down payment, and it's flat. Here's credit EFT, it's pretty flat, and you get the same story. So this is just a different way of showing what is shown in either of these plots. So this makes a very important point. We can either use a clustered bar chart and encode one of the variables using color, or we can use a line plot and encode using color and or the line style, so solid versus big dashes versus small dashes and so forth, or we can use multiple panels. Now if you want to use yet another variable, so I'm going to bring in the variable, how many times have you used the club in the first month? We're going to use, so we have to encode each of the variables with some method. So I'll stick down payment on the horizontal axis. We'll use different panels for the payment type, so book, statement, the two AFTM methods, and then we'll use different lines for the different levels of usage during the first month. Now the story is quite interesting. It's that 3 strikes and you're out. So you can think of one strike as being book or statement. A second strike is not using the club. The third strike is putting very little down. You can have 2 strikes against you. So for example, you can use book, which is a horrible payment method, and you could not be using the club, which would be this blue, but if you put a lot of money down, you're not going away. So any combination of 2 of these does not imply that you're highly at risk, but if you have all 3 of those strikes against you, watch out. So this bottom panel shows a scatter plot, which you'll get when you cover Chapter 11. Let me summarize now the key points from week 3. So key point number 1 is, look for relationships. So, good graphics usually start with depicting a relationship. So whatever your client cares about should be on the vertical axis, and we want to plot that against the causal factors. So either what you're doing, so demonstrating the value of marketing, or perhaps what other causal factors like what the competitor has done, or seasonality, weather, and so forth. Purely descriptive graphs are usually not actionable. All right. The way to use all of this graphical software is that you're going to put the dependent variable on the vertical axis. You'll put your independent variable, if you only have one on the horizontal axis, and then if you have other independent variables. So let's think about the examples that we saw today. We had your gender and your training level affecting salary. We also had your payment method and your down payment amount affecting default rates. Okay, so you have to use some other method if you have a second or third dependent variable. The two methods that we talked about are either using multiple lines or clustered bars, kind of the same thing, and we have to encode that with color or some sort of plotting symbol, like we saw with the different lines. The alternative is to use small multiples, and of course if you have three independent variables, you'll do one with multiple lines, say, and the other using multiple panels. The third key point is that you want to think about what's going to be easily decoded by your audience. So usually the best method is position along a common scale. Lengths are okay. You want to avoid these things that are difficult to decode, like angles, areas, color, intensity, and volume. And then finally, eliminate unnecessary ink, eliminate chart junk, and keep proximity in mind.